It's an absolute kick to the teeth, let down and lied to.
This, to me, gives the green light to sexual offenders.
It's absolutely disgraceful that this is even being passed and allowed to happen.
Because let's face it, the punishments don't fit the crime.
These women have jumped unimaginable hurdles to be among the small number whose reports of sexual abuse end in conviction.
I was 16 when I finally told someone. That's my entire childhood, and I've not had enough time to get any of that back.
Over the past week, they've been in touch with Channel 4 News after being told their abusers may be released as early as a third into their sentence under government reforms designed to ease prison overcrowding. Evie, not her real name, was subjected to sexual abuse by her stepfather from the age of 8.
He was sentenced to 15 years in prison with a minimum of 10.
But last week she was told he could be released years earlier.
He's a violent person, and it is a genuine fear that he will turn up where I'm living and hurt me. I can't sleep because of it. It's like really affecting my day-to-day life. I feel like I see him everywhere, and he's not even been released yet. So when he has been released, it's just completely cripplingly terrifying.
And what does it make you feel about the state of the criminal justice system now?
Is my peace and my life worth so little? Because I deserved that 10 years. I deserved to feel safe. I deserved to know that I was believed and that I was getting justice and that I was getting some semblance of, I don't know, retribution, or I don't even know what the word would be, but like the whole decision has just made me feel so small and so invisible and so angry.
This change to sentencing follows a lack of capacity in the prison system that at its peak left fewer than 100 places free in adult male prisons in England and Wales, with some inmates housed in police cells instead. From 2003, most prisoners were released automatically halfway through their term, until 2020, when Boris Johnson's government upped prison time for some sexual and violent offenders to 66%. A capacity crisis in 2024 saw a Conservative and then Labour government releasing prisoners early, initially temporarily, with sexual offences excluded. But from this September, time served in jail will be reduced for all but those serving extended or life sentences, back down to 50% for some and 33% for others, with the majority then subject for a period to electronic monitoring. This week, a Justice Minister was quizzed by MPs, some from his own party, angry that exemptions hadn't been announced, including former Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips.
There should be more exemptions within the release scheme, and child rapists seems to be an area that we should potentially all be looking to work together for, if the numbers allow.
Most people would regard members of grooming gangs who sexually abused, raped and exploited children, and indeed child sex offenders more generally, as falling within the order and meaning of the most serious and heinous offences.
There was an unusual intervention too from the Speaker.
I've also got a constituent that got a letter, so I've got to say it's very serious across the country.
No space in prisons would mean no trials, no justice for victims, no punishment for offenders. That is the choice. Strict licence conditions in the community for those who've already served time in prison under our reforms, or the collapse of the system entirely, leaving sex offenders and others acting with impunity.
Allowing early release.
Survivors receiving the letter have been told they'll be notified by the end of August if and when their perpetrators will be released.
To open that letter and see that it says he may be let out, well, if he's in that maybe category where he is let out, I'm going to be looking over my shoulders again.
Carol's father was sentenced to 20 years for raping her as a young teenager. After reading a letter saying he may be released early, she's calling on the government to change its mind.
I haven't even got to a point that I can like speak about it without it still affecting me. So there's no way he should be coming out of prison now. I can't believe they've made this decision. Honestly, I don't think they must not know. They've passed their problem on to us. They've got an overcrowding in prison. That is not my problem.
The government says the sentencing overhaul will free up 7,500 places by 2028, though they haven't revealed the exact number to be released early. For the survivors, there's now an agonising wait to find out if their abuser will be back in the community.
How can anyone even consider letting a sexual predator out early?
They should serve their full sentence, which was given to them by a judge.
You're just releasing them back out onto the streets for them to commit further offences with a probation system that's broken.
Amelia Jen there. Well, earlier I spoke to Amy Clowry, a solicitor specialising in child abuse cases, and Mark Fairhurst, who chairs the Prison Officers Association. I began by asking them for their reaction to the letters victims have received, informing them that their perpetrators may be eligible for early release.
The overriding emotions of my clients were fear and concern for their safety and well-being. Some of them are thinking about moving out of area. Some of them have just had a complete mental health crisis. The fact that they've received a letter saying it might happen is disgraceful. I think they should have been only contacted if it was a certainty. I've had clients that have said to me, why are they telling me 3 months early that it might happen? I've now got to worry for the next 3 months.
You're sort of shaking your head in agreement, yet this is essentially being done for your members, for the prison system as a whole.
And it's a necessary evil because we're so overcrowded and because this is decades of austerity measures, budget cuts, closing prisons, not enough cell spaces, and now cuts have consequences, and this is part of the consequences. But there need to be exemptions for serious sexual offenders and violent offenders. But there are no exemptions. This applies to all prisoners on a standard determinate sentence. So there will be, as you say, by next June, at least 6,000 early releases because of this new legislation. We want the prison population reduced, but it can be done so much better. It doesn't have to go down this road. You're spending billions on new-build prisons. We don't need new-build prisons. We need secure mental health institutions in our communities to rid the prisons of people with acute mental health conditions. We need support services in our communities for people with addictions. We need to help people change their lives rather than release them early onto an overworked and under-resourced probation service, which is now under increased pressure.
It is a necessary evil.
Unfortunately, at this point.
Do you agree? Do you accept that?
I accept that there should be some early releases, but I don't think that the most serious offences, so violent offences or sexual offenders, should be released early. I think that they're a massive risk.
And what do you think of the fact that despite repeatedly asking, they haven't been able to tell us exactly, among those people being released, who they are?
I just think it's appalling. I just think there's absolutely... there's going to be no faith in the government or the justice system, and they need to look at what that knock-on effect is.
This is all going under the radar, and the public need to wake up and challenge this because we need to do things better. There's an easier way to reduce the prison population, and that's to invest in services in our communities, in robust community sentences, and invest in the probation service so they can monitor people.
I mean, the government is insisting that this will be a safe move. It says there will be intensive supervision. Are you convinced that the processes in place are rigorous enough that every prisoner who might be released won't end up being a danger?
Well, when they say intense supervision, what they mean is an ankle tag, a GPS tag fitted by a company that has failed this government in the past and failed the public in the past. And what do they mean by intense supervision? They haven't got enough probation staff to cope with what they're dealing with now.
So what confidence do you think the women you represent will have that this will be a safe process?
Many of them have had concerns about the men when they've been in prison and the threats that they've received whilst they've been in prison. So for them to be released early and for these promises to be made, you know, that there'll be these safeguards in place, it's just not sticking.
I mean, the government are talking about hundreds of millions they're spending on the probation service, recruiting huge numbers of probation officers.
Recruiting staff doesn't happen overnight. They have to be interviewed, they have to pass assessments, they have to be vetted, They have to be trained. So now you've got a really inexperienced probation workforce who are only new to the risks that they're supposed to assess. So it's all going to take time. My biggest fear with all this is that we're on the verge of a massive crime wave, because I don't think there's support services in place for people we're releasing.
Jake Richards, the Minister, said it in the House of Commons the other day, that they want victims at the heart of this. They will listen to them. What do you think victims will say?
I think, frankly, the politics has been tit for tat on this issue, and I listened to the debate in the Commons the other day, and it was just appalling the way in which it was handled. And survivors are seeing all of this, they watch all of this, and I think they're just completely disheartened.
The truth is, though, how do you square that circle between relieving the pressure on prisons and protecting victims and delivering for them what many of them want, which is for this not to happen?
Change the criteria and listen to the voices of the victims so they do feel safe.
But if there were exemptions, it's possible that they wouldn't get enough people out to relieve the pressure that they keep talking about.
I doubt that very much because, as you know, Jackie, we came close to collapse not so long ago. But we will always find a space for the most serious offenders.
And that's not what the government said when they talked about only having 100 places and the criminal system was on the verge of collapse.
They did, but we would have provided spaces. We wouldn't have let that happen.
This is a government that, you know, put as one of its highest priorities violence against women and girls. What message is this sending out, not just to the women who have already been victims of terrible crimes, but to those who might be considering whether to go to the police?
One of my clients had spent 8 years going through various trials in relation to her perpetrators because it was part of a child sexual exploitation gang. And some of her perpetrators will now potentially be out in less years than she spent fighting for justice. So what justice, where is the justice there? That there isn't any. It makes people think, why would I bother putting myself through, going through years of trauma to help put these people away for them to be released early?
Amy Clowry, Mark Fairhurst, thanks very much for talking to us today. Well, after we recorded that discussion, Andy Burnham weighed in on the case of the ringleader of the Rochdale grooming gang, who is due to be released from prison tomorrow. 73-year-old Shabir Ahmed was convicted of multiple counts of rape and sexual offences against girls in 2012. He was stripped of his British citizenship, but his victims have been told he can't be deported back to Pakistan. Mr Burnham posted, "Like everyone, I want this vile criminal out of the country," adding that he will ask the Home and Foreign Secretaries to review all possible options. Well, earlier I spoke to the Prisons Minister, Lord Timpson, about the likely outcome of this early release policy. Lord Timpson, how many rapists, child abusers, domestic abusers will this government be releasing early?
Well, what is clear is we inherited a crisis in our justice system. We were running out of prison cells. We had one day where we had less than 100 cells, so we had to take this very difficult action. And what we are doing is making sure we have a sustainable justice system. So for victims of these horrendous crimes, we're working with them, communicating with them to ensure that they know exactly what's going on. We're completely transparent with them. And so when their perpetrators are released, our exclusion zones are correct and the licence conditions work in the interests of the victims.
But on that specific question, how many rapists, child abusers, domestic abuse perpetrators, killers will the government be releasing early as part of this new Sentencing Act?
So we've been very clear. There are 18,000 prisoners who are not part of this scheme at all. But for the others that are, we are working with victims, and we've been very clear that we know that there will be 7,500 spare cells as a result of this.
But you're not being clear about who's being released, are you? So just to that question, we're talking about child rapists, groomers, domestic abuse perpetrators, killers. Do you know how many of those will be released, and are simply not willing to tell us, or you just don't know?
Jackie, that is not the case. So what is happening at the moment is our teams in prisons, they are incredible teams working this out. It's very, very complex what they're doing. They're working now, as we speak here, to work out exactly when everybody is going to be released. So it's important that we get it right. It is a moving target. So it is impossible for us to say exactly who will be released where and when, but we're working fast to ensure that victims know first.
But just to be clear, because the public are also interested in this, all of those groups will potentially be released early. Rapists, abusers, domestic abusers.
And the reason why we have to do that is to ensure that there are prison cells available, because it is very dangerous to run out of prison places. We do not want to go back to where we were when we came into government, where we had to make very difficult decisions, because we always need to have a cell, because we recall we recall people who are on the streets and behave badly, and it means that we need to have space for police to arrest people and to lock them up.
I want to put to you what a couple of the women have told us. Evie's stepfather sexually abused her when she was a child. He was due to serve 10 years in jail. Now he may be free within months. She told us, I deserved that 10 years with him locked up. She says it is cripplingly terrifying that he might be out soon. Carol is also terrified, raped by her father as a child. She says this: you are passing on your problem, overcrowded prisons, to us, the victims. What do you say to those women?
Well, the crimes that these women have faced are horrendous. And that is why, as a government, we've committed to halve the number of women who are violated by men by half.
But this surely completely fights that.
Jackie, the previous Conservative governments closed 23 prisons. If I had those 23 prisons open today, we would not be having this conversation. But I need to make sure the public are kept safe. And the way we keep them safe is ensuring that we always have a cell door for someone to look behind if the police arrest them and want to charge them. That is the safe way for victims today and victims of the future.
People will raise, their concerns that they don't believe this is safe. The government have said that there will be intensive scrutiny by the probation service. There will be a massive rise in tagging. All of this pressure on a probation service, just a couple of months ago, the Public Accounts Committee described as on the brink of collapse.
90% of our probation regions are performing better than they were last year. We've seen the biggest increase in electronic monitoring ever, and it is stable and it is working. We are investing £700 million extra. That's a 45% increase in probation. We're employing more staff than ever before. Probation is where the heavy lifting of the justice service is done, and our probation staff do an incredible job, but they haven't been supported for years, and what we're doing is supporting them and giving them all the tools they need. We've still got a lot to go, but these green shoots are everywhere I see.
A related story, the ringleader of the Rochdale grooming gang, Shabir Ahmed, is being released, we understand, tomorrow. But despite promises made by the government say he cannot be deported. Andy Burnham, the man who is expected to become the next leader of the Labour Party and the next Prime Minister, thinks that has to change. Can we assume that will change now?
Well, you are correct, Jackie, that he will be released tomorrow, and there's nothing we can do about that. But it is also true that deportations are up 36%. And I'm also aware that ministers are looking into this case. We certainly don't want someone who's committed these vile crimes wandering around the streets and the poor victims knowing that this person is wandering around the streets. We need to make sure that they are safe, and we need to make sure that the teams that are working on this get to work and get to work quickly.
Lord Timpson, thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks, Jackie.